may be unpredictable, but we never know where we will end up if we don't keep going. And today's guest chose to move forward in spite of the obstacles that were in her way. And she also chose to cultivate, nourish, and enrich her mental health so that she could be a light and a joy to others as she has been now for many years. And that is why it is my honor to have Lisa Greenberg as our guest on the Power Transformation podcast, who certainly has a story to tell. And with that being said, welcome to the Power Transformation podcast. I am your host, Alethea Felton. It is my honor to have you here with me today. And if you're new to this podcast, welcome. Go ahead and follow and subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and write a review. It is because of you that this podcast continues to rank in the top 5% of shows globally and continues to move higher with each passing day. I thank you for your support. And we're also on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. I am building that channel gradually, so you won't see all episodes from every single season, but you are going to be seeing most up there as I continue to build the YouTube channel along with my assistant. And so with that being said, we're going to dive right into this interview. We're going to start first with our affirmation. I'll say the affirmation once and then you repeat it, and then we'll jump right into this interview with Lisa Greenberg. I embrace the journey of life and trust that everything happens for a reason. Lisa, welcome to the Power Transformation podcast.
Thank you, Alethea. I'm so happy to be here with you. And I'm so grateful that you feel that I have something I can share. I do believe we all do. And I thank you so much for giving me this
You're
time.
so welcome. Yes, you're so welcome. And you all, she is so humble and just modest because she's saying that I think she has a story. Listen, when you all hear her journey, when I talk about the power transformation that people make in their lives, Lisa, hands down, has that down pat. And I hope that one day, perhaps, if she's led to, it's no pressure on my part, but if she's led to, I already told her she needs to write a memoir of her life or something because it's incredible. But I want to start first with just something lighthearted. I always like a little fun icebreaker question. And so this is my question for you, Lisa. And if you didn't have one, then I'll modify the question. But who was either your childhood or adult celebrity crush?
I know it right away.
Okay.
No question. David Cassidy.
Oh, I know exactly who that is. Tell us more. What was it about
Oh
David
my
Cassidy?
gosh. Well, listen, I'm 59, and I think any woman my age, around my age, would probably say that. He was a heartthrob. He was adorable. His music was lovely. He was in a show called The Partridge Family, and he was just amazing. You have a crush on him, if you're a little girl back then. And the funny thing is, oh my gosh, my walls in my room from top to bottom were David Cassidy's faces from all the Tiger Beat magazines and all of that. Now, I lived in an apartment, and I just remember one particular day, I wanted to hang up some more pictures of him, and I ran out of tape, and I used toothpaste.
Oh my goodness. That is hilarious.
And then also I went to a concert, and my stepfather was with me and my mom. And at the end of a concert, sometimes, I don't know if they still do this, but performers will throw out things. So he threw out his sweat rag, and he threw out his water cup. And my stepfather caught the water cup, and I saved it forever.
Oh my goodness.
And then I'll just add one other little silly thing. So then he had a brother named Sean Cassidy, who came out and became popular later on. And I liked him as well, not as much as David. You see, I'm on a first name basis with Dave.
Yes, you are.
But it's funny because and I went to a Sean Cassidy concert. I was a little older, and I came home and couldn't go to school the next day because I was so in love with Sean. I couldn't go to school the next day. My poor mom. So anyway, yeah, that was an easy question, Alethea.
Oh, that's fun. That is such a fun way to start. And I'm so glad that I asked that. I was just, curious, just anything. You never know what I'm going to ask, but it's going to be fun and lighthearted. That's really, really cool. So, Lisa, what I like to do now is just in your own words. I'm going to switch up. Usually I'll ask a guest who is so and so, but this is what I'm going to ask you instead. What do you, Lisa Greenberg, what do you like the most about yourself?
Okay. I I love my kind heart.
Oh,
I love my kind heart.
yes.
And I love that I have a desire every single day to be the best version of myself that I can be.
Hmm.
And I tell myself, as long as I come from love in everything I do today, and I say that each day as I pray in the morning, then I know that all will be well. And
Indeed.
so I love that about myself, just my
Mhm.
kind heart, my desire to really want to be the best human I can be, coming from love, coming from a place of love.
Oh, what a perfect answer. And I can say that I have been a recipient of that kind heart. And so that is absolutely true. And that kind heart, to say that from a woman like you who has experienced so much in your life, some of your experiences could have caused you to become stone-hearted and bitter and resentful, but yet that didn't happen. So let's, in a sense, go back to some of the origin stories of you. And so growing up, you spoke about going to concerts, things of that nature. But you had shared with me that you had young parents and things of that nature. So just take us back on a journey where I'd like you to just tell us what was your early understanding of life at a young age, and how did those experiences almost shape the path or the trajectory of your entire life story?
Okay. I think as a young child, I don't know if we have an understanding then
Hmm.
of what is going on. I mean, I certainly don't think I did then. Although as I became a teenager, what I knew, and I'll go back in a minute, but as a
Of course.
teenager, I really was aware that everybody around me was a mess and had a lot of mental health issues.
Mhm.
Okay. So going backwards, I had young parents, and I think back in the day, people got married younger. My parents had me in their early 20s, and they divorced by the time I was 2.
Oh.
And so I would spend time with my father on weekends eventually, not at first. I know at first there was a lot of arguing between my mom and dad and a lot of arguing about child support. I vaguely remember those fights and whatnot. So
Mhm.
I spent most of my time at first with my mom. It was this young, I guess she was, I would say 22, young
Oh,
single
yeah.
mom. But
Mhm.
in time, I spent Saturdays with my dad, and I loved him. My dad was a hippie. It was the time, the 70s. And he, there were things that were not okay that happened while I was with my dad. No doubt, hands down, they were not okay. For example, my dad smoked pot a lot.
Mhm.
And when we would be together, we would be driving, we would be in the car, he would be smoking. And I remember looking out the window as a little girl. I knew, I guess he had told me to not tell anyone. I knew that it wasn't legal. And I would
Oh,
always
okay.
be afraid and think that the police were going to pull us over. And
Hmm.
in time, he would take me, I didn't know this at the time, but now I know, he was also dealing drugs. And so I would be a little girl going with my father on drug deals. And I remember us pulling over on the side of a road, and I remember him getting out of the car while I waited, and a big
Hmm.
guy with a cowboy hat. I still remember. Walked up
Mm.
to him, and there was a drug deal. Or I remember being with my dad and seeing this stuff that was like long, and it was tie weed. And I just remember that. But it was all like normal to him, all the drugs, all that was normal. So much so that like I remember him asking me if I wanted to try it. He
Hmm.
didn't think anything was wrong with that. I remember, I don't know if I asked him or if he said to me, "Do you want to learn how to roll a joint?" I mean, it's crazy to think about. I was
Yeah.
probably at that point 9 or 10.
Hmm.
And I knew enough not to go home to my mom and share it with her. And I loved him. He had young girlfriends. That wasn't appropriate.
Hmm.
And, we would be together and I'd be sitting on the side of the bed while they were in bed, or,
Mm.
um, they would go skinny dipping and I would sit on the side of the pond. And then there were many days that he would call and I'd be waiting by the door, excited to have him pick me up. And he'd call and he'd say, "Lise, I'm sorry, I can't come today." Now, at the
Mm.
time, he would say he was sick. I know now he probably had partied too hard or didn't want to get out of bed with his girlfriend. But so I think as a little girl, that does something to you, being let down
Yes,
and
of
not
course.
being the priority. And yet he loved me. And I,
And let me jump in here too. And thank you for that vulnerability and transparency. But one of the things you said when you first started talking about him was you loved your dad. And it's so amazing to me how, in spite of his flaws and challenges that he had, at the end of the day, he was daddy. You knew that he loved you and you loved him. And so, how do you reconcile that at that age? Or is it something that you thought about older, that here my father was putting me in potentially risky situations, yet I love him so much? Is it more of a he only did what he thought was best, or he was doing the best he could? How do you reconcile that within yourself?
Mhm. So are you asking how I reconcile that now or even as a
Yeah.
kid? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
Because
Mm-hmm.
as a child, I
As
don't think
as
you
a
can.
child, no, we
No.
aren't thinking about that
Right.
as kids, but looking
I'm
back on
clear.
things. Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty clear. I know that his own parents did not have their acts together. His
Okay.
father, my grandfather, pulled a gun. I
Mm-hmm.
learned that my grandfather, his father, was a pimp. He owned a bar. He was in just a whole, not a very positive atmosphere his whole life as a little boy, with his father being that. And so I know that, my gosh, my dad didn't have good role models, healthy role models. He saw that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know without a shadow of a doubt, he did the best he knew how.
Mm-hmm.
He loved his little girl. And
Mm-hmm.
he told me, as when I was getting ready to go to college, he said, "Lisa, I don't just love you, I like the person you are." And I know people might hear my story and think, how awful, what a terrible. I don't think that way. He was my dad.
That's
No, he never read me stories. No, I don't remember him, helping me with homework. We never had any of that. Any of
Mhm.
that. I mean, and years later, and I don't know if you want me to share that now or later, but
Yeah, so yeah, I'll get to
okay.
that part. But no, thank you for saying that, B, because just because he had this aspect of his life. And again, I'm not condoning what he did, but it doesn't make him a bad person. And I
Right.
think that's what's important to know is that we all have our challenges. We all have our struggles. We all have something that we have that may not be ideal to the next person, whether
Right.
we talk about it or not. It might not even be in our present life, but something in our life that we've done or
Yes.
could still be doing. The fact remains is that it doesn't necessarily have a reflection on a person's character. And so I do understand that your father did the best he could to keep you safe. You knew that he loved you. He still spent quality time with you, even if it wasn't going to the zoo or to the park. He still had you with him. And I think that's very important. And when you became a teenager, you actually moved in with your father. So,
Yes.
tell me about moving into in with your father. And then also talk to us about when your father did ultimately pass away. And how did that crossing the threshold moment affect you emotionally and shape the way that you dealt with adversity at such a young age?
Okay. So my mom had remarried and had a child, my brother,
Mm-hmm.
and I lived with my stepfather and my mom and my brother for many years. Like I said, seeing my dad on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and my stepdad started to talk about divorce, and it wasn't good in the house. I had to get out. I knew that I couldn't stay there. There were things happening that were really difficult. And so I moved in with my dad for the first time at 16 years old, which meant that I was also going to be going to a new school because I was going into a different county. I didn't know what I was moving into. I didn't know. And my father had remarried as well. And I didn't know that now I was moving into a crack house.
Mm-hmm.
And what that looked like was I would go to sleep at night before school, and there would be my dad and his wife and other women and men in the living room, freebasing,
Mm-hmm.
smoking cocaine. And I would see that and go to bed. I'd wake up for school. They'd still be there with big eyes, the
Yeah.
result of
Mhm.
smoking cocaine all night. I'd go to school, didn't know anyone, new school, trying to find my way. And I lived there for a while. And I even remember this brown wooden canister in the kitchen,
Mhm.
and it was filled with Quaaludes and not sugar.
Oh,
The turning point
okay.
was I came home one day from school.
Lisa, I'm sorry. Just in case a listener or viewer doesn't know, I know, but can you explain what that is?
Quaaludes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, from
Yes.
what I understand, and I don't know if people still use them today or not,
Mm-hmm.
but back during those years, now at this point, it was the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, it was right around 1980. I just remember there was something called Quaaludes, and people would take them, and I believe it would make them very promiscuous, and I I don't know.
It's a type of narcotic. Yeah.
Right,
It's a
right.
type of narcotic. Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Right.
So
So on
continue
this
on. So,
one,
mhm.
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 On this one particular day, I came home and my stepmom was in the dining room, and on the dining room floor, we had a carpet or a rug that was like furry, really
Uh-huh.
funky furry.
Shag type of rugs that are
Yes,
popular. Yeah.
even more furry than shag,
Yes, yes,
if you
exactly.
can get there, but you can.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And she was standing there with a cigarette, like moving, and she was really stoned, and the cigarette dropped. And I'm
Mm.
standing there with her, just walked in, my backpack's on my back, and she had no idea that it dropped.
Oh.
And of course, I picked it up. I knew in that moment I couldn't stay there anymore. I
Mm.
knew that if I hadn't been there, would the house have gone up in flames?
Mhm.
So at that point, I moved in with my cousin, and I ended up navigating my way and getting to college, despite the fact that I didn't even know what an SAT test was. Because one
Mhm.
weekend, my best friend, who I'd made now in high school, said that she was taking the SATs that weekend, and I said, "What is that?" So I caught up pretty quickly and found out, and took them and got into college.
Mhm.
And all the while, I still had a relationship with my mom, and she was again single. And I remember thinking, now let me just back up and say that everywhere I looked at that point in my life, everyone was, I don't know what word to use, messed up, uh,
Mhm.
mental health issues.
Mhm.
And what do I mean? Well, my father, you knew what was going on with him. My father's brother, my uncle Freddie, had schizophrenia.
Mm.
And I would, be in his presence sometimes and see what that was. And that was hard to watch.
Mhm.
My mother was, a single mom again. She had some of her own anxiety. She loved me. She was very dear to me. I adored my
Mm.
mom. But she was also, I think, at the time wanting to start dating again, was raising my brother,
Mhm.
was around, he's 9 years younger than I am, so he was still younger. Um, my mom's two siblings, her sister was schizophrenic, and her brother, my uncle, had a lot of issues, depression, body dysmorphic disorder. He was on
Oh, yes.
methadone maintenance. And so
Mhm.
whenever I would visit my grandmother, my mom's mom, and their mom, I would be around some of that mental health stuff. I would
Mhm.
see my Aunt Carol coming and talking about bizarre stuff. I would hear my uncle going through all of his rants and raves and body dysmorphic. He would see things on his hand that you didn't see, and just the
Mhm.
mental health. And then my grandfather. I know now my grandfather had OCD. There's no question. I didn't know at the time. I just thought he was really odd, but he would go in and
Mhm.
out, check his car, in and out, in and out, in and out. I know now what it is because I have OCD, which we
Mhm.
get to. But my point being, there was not one really together person in my life. And so going to
Mhm.
college, I finally felt like,
You
now
could breathe, yeah.
I get to have maybe some normalcy.
Interesting. Ooh, that is so profound, Lisa. That you, wow, it's almost as if although you love your family, it's almost a relief off of your shoulders in a sense that okay, now I get to mark my way and pave
Yes,
my path
yes.
in the world. And so what I want to go to now is you're in college, finding your way, and then you ultimately end up getting a call, if I'm not mistaken, and just tell me if I'm right chronologically, but you end up getting a call about your father, correct?
Well, I
Or
actually
did
graduated.
that come later?
That came later.
Okay, so let me jump here. Let's go to your 20s, okay? In your
Mhm.
20s is when you got married, correct? If I'm not
Yes, but my father died before that.
prior that, yes. So that's where I'm getting to. You had some major close circumstances happen to you. And I want to shift now into your finding your way in college,
Yes.
and then you end up getting married, etc. But you experience the passing or the transition of your dad. And then even after that, you end up getting married, and as you're married, my point is that you end up ultimately, as you stated, being diagnosed with OCD.
Yes.
And let's talk about that, is talk about those challenges that could really be seen as ordeals on your life journey. How did you confront such trauma, dealing with your father and then something also with your husband that you'll share? And how in the world, Lisa, did you keep going?
Mm. Alicia,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know
Hmm.
sometimes. I don't know if I have an exact answer about how I kept going. I don't
That's
know.
okay.
Is that okay
That's
to
okay.
say?
Girl, yes. That's okay. And I like that authenticity, because people are people are going through real stuff every day. And that's why I like to bring people on this show who are going to be real in this era and day and time, 2024, 2025. We're doing this in 2024, but it might not air until early 2025. My point is, we see so many people now on these social platforms and the media. And I'm not saying people have to tell everything about their life, but then again, I'm like, why not? We hide the challenges, we hide the scars. We try as a society, there is this emphasis on being perfect. And at the end of the day, people need real people who have gone through raw things and could still be going through those challenges, yet put one foot in front of the other.
Yes,
So
I agree.
let me rephrase the question, and just to share, to speed it up some on my part. Your father passes, you're diagnosed with OCD, you get married, something happens to your husband. Share with us what happened to your husband, and then that journey from there. How in the world did you handle the deaths of both your father and husband in
Okay.
such tragic ways?
Okay. I'm going to
Mhm.
tell you that, but I am going to say one thing, because
Yeah, go
while
ahead.
I know that I don't know that I have an answer to your other question,
Hmm.
I do want to add one important thing. I had a therapist from the age of 16 into my 40s. Her name was Merle.
Mm.
And I do believe and know that she played a very huge part. And I do want to add that my father did get a big part of his life together. He did come to me and
Oh,
say, I don't want to deal drugs anymore. My friends are getting locked up. I'm afraid. And he did stop. And so when he
wow.
died, which was a car accident, he had gotten a good bit of his life together.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Lisa.
Yes.
Because I know
So,
offline, when we had our pre-screening, I did not know that. And so I'm so happy to hear it, because with all of my guests, just so that the audience knows, okay, I like conversation. And so with my guests, when I pre-screen them, it's more of getting a little bit of their
mhm.
story, but not them sharing it all, because I want to be authentic and listening and really having the excitement just like you all. And so I am so
Yes.
glad to hear that he had his
Yes.
own transformation.
Yes. Yes. And
Wow.
so I wanted that said because
Thank
that's
you.
important.
It
And
is.
that's what also made, listen, death is never never, ever something that we, feel good about ever. But what
Mm-hmm.
made it even more bittersweet for me was that he had made some shifts and he had bought taxi cabs and became incorporated and ran a little taxi cab business. And I remember him saying to me, Lisa, this is so hard. I would be dealing drugs, he would say, and make major money within a second.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm doing what's legal and I'm hardly making anything and I'm working many more hours. So I remember we had real talks like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
That's beautiful to hear.
Mm,
That's wonderful. Thank you
yes.
for that,
And so
Lisa.
it was after he died that all of a sudden I started to have those symptoms, which I didn't know what it was. And I
Mm-hmm.
learned later it was OCD. And that was a very, very difficult part of my life. And it took years with a doctor to find the right medication. And I don't know how I got through that time, to be honest.
Do doctors know if it was something that triggered it, or you mentioned one of your grandfathers had
Right. So I think,
obsessive
right.
compulsive disorder. So
I
is it a
know.
genetic link, perhaps?
Right. So mental health issues are genetic.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I know my mom had anxiety. So without a doubt, I come by it very honestly. But my psychiatrist at the time did say that oftentimes when we're predisposed for mental health issues like this, and something happens that is, just abrupt, like
Mm-hmm.
learning about my father's death. I was woken in the middle of the night, learned that he was killed in an accident. And so my doctor said that probably brought it on sooner. So yeah, that was a real journey. I mean, thank God there's medication. So, but anyway,
Yeah.
so your real question was, so my
In
husband,
terms of your husband, you
right,
get married and
right,
then
all right,
something happens to
yes.
your husband. So how did you handle that chapter of your life?
Right. So we got married. I knew that he had used some drugs in college, but he wasn't anymore. At least I thought. I learned that he had been using drugs. He lied to me. I found out. I followed him, saw him go into a dealer's house, let him know that if he didn't get help, that this marriage was going to be over because I had already struggled with my dad's life experience, losing him,
Mhm.
dealing with my own OCD for 5 years, the struggle. And now I was like, able to breathe and now this. So I said, no, I'm not having a life like this. And so he did go away. He had treatment and he came back and life seemed to be okay. I mean, he was not without his own struggles and issues and family dynamics there. And he also had OCD, which was crazy, and his sort of surfaced differently than mine.
Mhm.
And he didn't attack his and focus on his in the way that I was. But, life was okay. I mean, it was never super easy, but he wasn't using drugs and it was okay. And we had children who I'm incredibly grateful for. They're my life. But in time, there were some things that became apparent to me. Things that I'm not going to choose to talk about here.
Of course, girl. Yeah.
Okay. But
Boundaries. And it's your life and always own your story. And
thank
I and I do encourage you to do that because this will open up even more opportunities, but always know you always have
you.
control
Thank
of
you.
what you share about
Thank you.
you. Hmm.
So
So,
there were things that made it incredibly imperative for me
mhm.
to separate. Um, and then during that time, it became apparent that he was using drugs again, separate from the real reason why I started to realize I can't stand this marriage.
Mhm.
And ultimately, long story short, I found him. He was living at his parents' and he was supposed to spend time with my children that evening and we couldn't reach him. And I asked my neighbor, my good friend, to watch my kids. And I found out from my father-in-law, who was not in town, if he had a key to the house, that I just felt something wasn't right. I saw my husband's car there at their house, and could I get in? And so I did, and I opened the door, and I found my husband laying on the ground. He had been murdered, and
My
he had drug
goodness.
paraphernalia all around him.
Wow. And Lisa,
Yeah.
wow. Wow, wow, wow.
And the
Mm,
first thing that I started screaming was, my children, my poor
yeah.
babies, because I knew that now they weren't going to have their dad. And so it was horrible. I'm going to shift this so that you can see me better. Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh. That's fine. It's
But
fine. Yeah.
so anyway, and then my mom, who was my everything, she helped me as much as she could. She was sick. And during this time, it was a really hard time, Alethea. I had two
Mm,
young children. There were things that I couldn't tell them at this point
mhm.
at all. They were too young, but yet there were things they had to know. Um, Money was an issue. I I was scared to death.
Mm,
And somehow I made it through
yeah.
and had my mom for a while until she passed away
Mm.
a year later. And so, yeah,
Yeah. And so even with that, as you're continuing through your life, you still had Merle in your life giving you therapy. And as time moves on, you end up meeting someone else that you described to me as the love of your life. And unfortunately, another tragedy strikes you. And so that actually thrust you into a deep depression. And so this is a shift I want to make is how did you begin to find your way out of that situation, especially when medication resistance became a
mhm,
factor?
mhm. So I was struggling, as you said, with horrible depression. And it's interesting, Alethea, because for the first 2 years after his name was Kenny, for the first
Hmm.
2 years after Kenny died, I actually still kept it together and I
Oh.
was still functioning well. I think it's because I had a lot of community, lots of pockets of different communities, and I still had children at home. And so I had to keep it together, and I was still working, I'm an educator. So everything was still until I went to Israel one summer on a women's trip. And when I came home, it was like someone took a light switch, and I was moving my daughter to college. So there was a big change happening,
Hmm.
but it was like someone took a light switch and turned it, and I was now no longer okay at all. I was no longer okay, and I was in full depression. And yeah, so doctors, my psychiatrist tried every different kind of medication on top of my OCD medication, combinations of, and with those kinds of medications, you have to build up. And then if they're not working, you have to wean off. So the time frames, it's not like one day you're fine because you take something that's working. It's all about this length of time and the
Hmm.
process of that while you're suffering.
Exactly.
And so the depression was real heavy. And then the anxiety, I had never experienced anxiety like that. And so for 5 years, I was able to work, although there was a very small part of the time where I did take off of work. But
Hmm.
my kids saw me laying on the sofa, not wanting to get in the shower. When my daughter would come home from school, she would see it from college. Um, my friends were trying everything they could do to help me. Nothing was helping, and I was scared to death. I was scared to death that this was my life forever. I tried transcranial magnetic stimulation which are magnetic impulses to your temples every day after work for months. No help. I tried ketamine. No help. I looked into and researched psychedelics, and that you had to get on long waiting lists, or there weren't any anything, any trials being run. And so I was just so worried, like, am I not going to find anything? I started to think about and was reading about uh brain, what is it called?
Electro
Shock.
shock therapy.
Mhm. I
Shock
heard that
therapy.
that could be beneficial, and yet that scared me
Yeah.
to death. And then my doctor, my regular internist, by my fourth year of going to her for my well visits and her seeing me not functioning, she gave me a phone number and said, when you leave here now, I want you to call Mindy. She is a trauma therapist.
Hmm.
She knows you're going to call her when you leave here. And I know it's with the help of Mindy that I am where I am today.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And
That is
so,
beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that is beautiful. And that is a testament to it because so many people suffer in silence. And so many people wear what I call are clown faces, where they're smiling on the outside and are so broken emotionally. And the fact, Lisa, that for 5 years you went through this way. And so when you have gone through such profound loss and pain, and you had to find a way to balance grief with gratitude and continue to just move through your life, what would you say to someone who is seeking to embrace both grief and find joy in their lives? Because just because you have joy doesn't mean that you still don't have some pain. So, how what would you say to a person who's seeking to find that embracing of grief and joy?
Well, I'm going to say though, Alethea, that I did not have any gratitude or joy then. Okay. I wasn't even hiding behind any smile or facade. I couldn't, like, I felt that
I see.
I was dead,
Um,
but my heart was still beating. Okay.
yeah,
So,
because what I was wondering was, since you were still able to work, I guess what I mean and teach is that maybe they always say teachers are the biggest actors. And so what I mean is maybe not that consistent part, but when I make the clown face reference, what I mean, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, what I mean is when you're in front of your students teaching, you might have to smile occasionally or put on a happy face, even if you don't want to. That's what I
yes.
meant by that.
So at that point, I was a school counselor. Right.
Interesting.
So I
Now that is
wasn't,
ironic that here
right.
you are,
I
the
know.
counselor.
I know.
That is
And
amazing.
so I wasn't necessarily standing in front of a class all day. I did have lessons to teach sometimes,
Of
but I was
course.
running small groups and I was, having one-to-one counseling with kids. But I knew I just wasn't who. That's when I decided I need to take a little break. And I took a few
Hmm.
weeks off and actually went
I
to
got you.
a day program. So, but the gratitude,
Hmm.
the gratitude came in once I started to work through some of this hard stuff in therapy with Mindy and doing the work, the trauma work.
Hmm.
So the gratitude has come. The gratitude had not been there, I want to say. And so I feel like what I want to say to people is this:
Mhm.
we can't do this life alone at times, especially. Okay. And so if and when you're struggling with whatever it may be, okay,
Mhm.
um, a physical, medical health issue, depression, mental health, whatever it is, Sometimes we feel like we want to pull back and isolate. That's the worst thing we can do. We need to sometimes rely on others to hear them tell us things that maybe we know that what they're saying doesn't make sense to us and that they may not have any idea of what we're going through, but to still listen, to still connect, to still allow them sometimes to carry us. There are times where I know I was carried. There were times where I would be in the company of people and just didn't talk. I had nothing to say. I was just like breathing, but I was like a blob. But to not isolate and to listen to people because it was because my doctor said to me, take this number. And then I said, okay, take leaps and trust. And because of that, I found my way with someone and I'm doing the work.
That's
And
right.
it's the work, we all have work to do in our life. Life bumps us around a bit. And so we have work to do, And so what I also have learned through my therapy, I've learned so much. I've learned that what we tell ourselves is really significant. It's the most significant thing that impacts our lives, our own mindset. We're this body walking around all day, and our thoughts are just bouncing around. And oftentimes, when we've lived in depression or any kind of anxiety, we have negative thoughts, we have negative thinking, we lose hope, and we do start to create habitual thinking. And habitual thinking becomes comfortable for us. And then we fall back on that. And so with my therapy, I've learned that that's really key to get hold of our thinking and the messages we tell ourselves.
That's right.
Yes. And so that's huge. And I don't know if people realize, many people do realize. Some people don't realize how important that is to nurture ourselves, to
Yeah.
take care of ourselves in the most loving way possible. So,
I appreciate
there,
that.
and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I was going to say, and so the things that I learned in therapy that I feel are really important for people to put into their lives, Mindy called scaffolding,
Mm-hmm.
which are positive, healthy, daily routines to keep you afloat, to nurture yourself for an everyday life, but also for when life maybe doesn't go so well. So that if depression visits me again, I now have some scaffolding that I rely on each day. For example, I wake up every morning and I pray. I then sit and I write in a gratitude journal every morning. And what's happened with that, it's not just in that time that I'm writing, it's what happens the rest of the day. Because if I'm writing about, and it's not every day that I say, I'm grateful for my children, I'm grateful for my home. It's certainly there's that, but there's also, I'm so grateful that I can hear because I'll hear birds today. I'll hear the children's voices at school and they're just so delicious. Or I'm so grateful that I can walk. Some people can't. So the gratitude isn't just the material things that you have in your life or that you're grateful for your family, which you are, but it goes beyond that too. And so then what happens is if you're having a bad day, the sad thoughts sort of, they're like sediment. They go to the bottom, and the gratitude and the things, the blessings that you see in your life sort of come up to the top. So I've experienced that from my regular practice of writing in a journal. Also, meditation, daily meditation, my yoga practice, my getting outside and being one with nature, and all of that, all of that is keeping me in this good headspace. I know, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Yes. And throughout the interview, and people who are listening won't see this, only the people who view it, but you've been adjusting yourself occasionally because of how the sun is. But I don't think that's by accident. Just the shine on you from the
No,
sun's rays. I
no.
think it's very, I don't believe in coincidences or anything like that. And so my own personal viewpoint is that it was intentional for the sun to glare on you like that, to show that transition from darkness into light, because
No.
so much of your life was just spent just being burdened down. Had good moments, yes, but in terms of the trauma over the years. So that light shining on you, Lisa, I think is so important. And as we come to our close here, I'm curious as to what is probably the most important lesson that you've learned personally from your journey thus far.
Okay. I believe that it's, you can let your story and the things that have happened to you be your only story. Or you can have them be a foundation to build upon, to bring out beauty into the world, to create good things from those hard times. Whatever has happened to us, it's happened for us. I
Mhm.
believe that. I truly do. And I think all of what happened to me, if anyone ever would have said, you'll be grateful for all of that, all of the losses, all of it, I would have thought, that's a crazy thought. But man, oh man, Alethea, I am grateful for all of it. It's all helped me to become who I am today. And I like who I am. I live and love out loud. I live juicy.
Mhm.
Oh, I have a kind heart, a giving heart, and I want to show up now in the world for others because for so many years people showed up for me. So just not to let what has happened to you, if those are the negative things that we're referring to, be the story. Let that be a starting point or a foundation to build beautiful new stories from.
Mhm. And you certainly have a story to share, Lisa. And I know that this is only the beginning of hearing more from you. There's so much inside of you, more that you need to get the world out to hear, because what you have experienced can certainly help others. It's definitely helping me. And I don't even think people have to come from the same direct backgrounds in terms of our life experiences to glean something from this journey. We are all in this together.
We
And
are.
it has been such an honor having you on the Power Transformation podcast. I'm so grateful to know you, Lisa, and thank you.
Alethea, thank you so much, so much. I'm grateful to you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. It helps us inspire even more listeners. And don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who could use a little power in their transformation. Until next time, keep bouncing back, keep rising, and be good to yourself and to others.